Hello, and welcome to the debut episode of The People's AI, the Decentralized AI podcast presented by Vana. I'm your host, Jeff Wilster. So what does the People's AI even mean? Why did I just sort of make up this phrase? Well, to me, it's a different way of saying decentralized AI, which is now emerging as the main counterweight, or foil, if you will, to big tech AI. To understand it, look no further than my partner for this podcast, Vana. Vana's MO is all about decentralized AI, or the people's AI. For AI is nothing without data. And Vana's mission is that you should own your data. And if your data is used to train AI, you should get compensated. You should have a say in how your data is used. This swings the power away from big tech and towards you. And this is why Vana's mission is to be the world's first open protocol for data sovereignty. Okay, but you might still be wondering, why should I care? So before we get into the weeds of protocols, I want to start not with something big or massive, but something small, literally small and tiny, a puppy. My new puppy, a 4.5-pound ball of fluff named Mojo. Now, when I gave the kickoff speech at the AI Summit last year at the Consensus Tech Conference, I shared a little story about my puppy, about Mojo. Now, I had never raised a puppy before. I did not know what I was doing. So I used ChatGPT all the time, daily, at times hourly, to ask how to raise Mojo. I was like, okay, Mojo just ate some deer poop. Is that bad? It was bad. And after a few weeks, after all of this, I realized that ChatGPT knew everything about little Mojo. I then realized that soon this will go from puppies to humans, and the ChatGPTs of the world will know everything about all of us. They will eventually become our chief of staffs. They will tell us the news. They will know our biases, whether that's left or right or libertarian, and they can shape how we see the news accordingly. This could be confirmation bias on steroids, or maybe they'll tailor the news to fit their own agenda, the agenda by whoever owns the AI. Which begs the question, who should own AI? At some point, and I think soon, these AI models will shape the way we see the world. They will impact how we think. This is a power that literally has no precedence in human history. It makes the impact of social media, which arguably swung elections, look quaint by comparison. So why am I doing this? For the past 2 years, as a journalist, I've been covering the world of decentralized AI, which is seen by many as a solution to this problem. The idea is that at most layers of the AI tech stack, from finding data to training data to building applications, you can do it in a way that's truly open, transparent, and in some ways owned by people themselves, owned by you. Now, yes, these solutions often involve blockchain, which is why the space is sometimes called crypto plus AI. If you're at all into crypto, you of course are aware that the decentralized AI space, or crypto plus AI space, is booming. I've been writing about it for CoinDesk. I'm producing and hosting the AI Summit at Consensus, crypto's flagship conference, and I've been interviewing the top thought leaders, from founders to CEOs to key developers. There are tons of topics and stories and innovations, and the space is evolving at an insane clip. So I wanted to create a new podcast that's focused solely on the world of decentralized AI, or what I'm now calling the people's AI. So my reason for this rebranding, this is just my hunch, but I think it's a bit less jargony, honestly, a bit more accessible, and it strikes to the core of what this is all about. So for the first episode, I wanted something of a primer, a table setter for what the people's AI is all about. And we have a masterclass of an introduction by two of the smartest people in the space. Anna Kazlauskas, co-founder of Vana, and Illia Polosukhin, the co-founder of Near. If you have ever used ChatGPT, or any of today's LLMs, in some sense, you have Illia to thank. He was part of a team at Google that wrote the seminal research paper called Attention is All You Need. That's the foundation for today's LLMs like ChatGPT. He went on to co-found Near, which is one of the most influential decentralized AI ecosystems in the entire space. In a sense, Illia is the perfect bridge between the more traditional type of AI you would think of and this new world of decentralized AI. And I am delighted to have Anna, the co-founder of Vana, on this debut episode. I first interviewed Anna last year in an article for CoinDesk, and immediately I was blown away and knew we needed to continue the conversation in a much deeper way, given Vana's mission of empowering people to own their own data. And data is, of course, the lifeblood of AI. This is the perfect partnership. So today, Anna, Illia, and I first cover why they care about this in the first place, why it matters, why we're all here. Then we get into the high-level ways that the people's AI can solve some of the problems of big tech AI, what specific categories and use cases excite them, and how they see the space evolving, as well as some spicy and juicy predictions. But here's a larger roadmap for the podcast. Every week, I'll be sharing conversations with other thought leaders in the world of decentralized AI. And in the future, we'll be going way deeper on individual topics. This is meant to kind of give a lay of the land. And folks who already are into crypto AI will find tons of great nuggets from Anna and Illia. Some housekeeping out of the gate. Please subscribe to People's AI wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on Twitter X, links in the show notes. Forward to a friend, spread the word. It is happening. But for now, please enjoy my conversation with Anna Kazlauskas, co-founder of Vana, and Illia Polosukhin, co-founder of Near. Anna, Illia, welcome to the People's AI podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Excited to be here. Yeah, thank you.
The debut episode. I'm thrilled to speaking with both of you. Let's jump right in and start with a problem that, broadly speaking, we're all trying to solve. What do you see as the core problems with big tech, centralized AI? Anna, what's your take?
Yeah, I think most people just see one option today, which is this like closed source AI, where one single company controls an all-powerful AI model that gets better and better with time. I think that there are two main problems. One is related to like truth and information, where whoever decides what data goes into that AI model is basically deciding truth for the world, right? And as more people get their information from AI, that is just the arbiter of truth in society. And so that's a huge point of kind of centralization and can lead to, whatever company controls that or country or government, whatever it is, just choosing what they want people to believe to be true. And the second is more like economic concentration. So in a world where you believe that kind of AI is going to be doing productive labor and really generating a lot of revenue on par with potentially like a workforce earning wages, if you have that all flowing back to a single company, it creates a huge amount of concentration, really a lot of kind of dystopian scenarios. And then there's also the technological piece, right? Which is that I think if you want to build really good AI, you need many people's perspectives and you need many people involved. And so I think there's also a more optimistic take, which isn't just prevent centralized AI because it could be very dark, scary, dystopian, but there's also, hey, there's this amazing path, which is user-owned, where everyone kind of contributes to AI, owns AI, and you have this open, interoperable system that allows like the extreme power that comes from AGI and kind of extremely powerful AI to actually still be very functional within a society.
Illia, Anna obviously touched upon a few core critical points. What would you add to that? And obviously you've been in this space for quite a long time. How do you frame this?
Yeah, I mean, totally agree with what Anna mentioned, but I would raise it that from my perspective, AI is effectively the last wave of technology. Like everything else will be developed by AI, through AI. And this is already happening. We already see a lot of scientists as well are effectively like people winning Nobel Prizes in chemistry and physics, right? AI researchers. And so I think this is just going to continue happening, right? The next design of a chip will be done by AI. Next car will be done by AI. And so the reality is like
podcasts are already done by AI, right? So
exactly,
I'm already obsolete. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to AI CEO so that, yeah, I can focus on stuff I like. And so the reality, like from my perspective, it becomes a control game, right? It's like whoever controls this technology, whoever controls an ability has impact on everybody's life in a very direct way. And if we assume any single party, as Anna was mentioning, having this control, they can censor, they can drive into a very like singular direction that they like. They can, I mean, I like to use this example. Imagine even a year from now, lots of companies using this technology, and a company that provides them the AI inference decide to turn off the whole country, right? Mm-hmm. Now, like a massive amount of GDP just stopped working. And so now you as a country, as a government, you're effectively in control of that. They don't even need to do it. Just the fact that they can is effectively creates a massive like economic pressure. And so that's I would say like kind of, it's less about for me, like kind of centralized or not, is really about this control that this impacts. And the other side is, I mean, companies are naturally designed to create profit for themselves, right? That's just incentive structure. Like people inside there, maybe even very much aligned with
despite all their intentions, despite open AI's
exactly, yeah,
it's inevitable, right?
Yeah, and Google, like all of them are just like becoming revenue generating machines, and so like they're naturally incentivized to insert stuff into the AI to make more money for themselves, right? And so that is exact opposite of individuals and their goals and their well-being. And so that's why I agree that user-owned AI is effectively the opposite of this. It's actually not like open source versus closed source. It's really about like corporate-owned versus user-owned, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, like and to me, decentralization, all this is just tools to achieve user ownership. But yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
Absolutely. And the answer to this question could be 10 hours, 100 hours. That's why we have this new podcast. But at a high level, and how would you say that decentralized AI is uniquely, and then we'll unpack what this means exactly, but at a high level, how is this addressing the problems you both laid out?
Yeah, I think that, so if you want to be super precise about the problem, what you want to avoid is like a single point of control in any of these AI systems.
Yeah.
Right. And then I some level of like self-sovereignty and transparency just to understand what went in. Like one thing actually maybe we haven't touched on yet that I think is quite dangerous. It's like you can subtly introduce like biases within the model, make it like a politician just a little bit more. And if you like propagate that through a whole society of everyone getting advice on what to do from an AI, you can really control public sentiment. Right. So I think the properties you want are like self-sovereignty and control that's not concentrated in a single entity. And I mean, crypto has been extremely successful at actually making this work for finance, right? Like we have self-sovereign money. We've achieved that in a very stable way as an industry, and there's still more to do. But generally, nobody can censor Bitcoin. Nobody controls Bitcoin. There is very good traceability, kind of immutability within the systems from a financial perspective. What decentralized AI and user-owned AI kind of offers is using those same systems to get the same properties of self-sovereignty, of censorship resistance in AI and data. I think that what that looks like tactically is building very powerful AI systems with the inputs of many people who are either contributing their data, research, compute, and then actually having them govern that AI model and be in true control. So I think that from a technical perspective, there's sort of all sorts of stuff we can go into related to like training data, how things are actually trained, where a model is stored. But in terms of the core properties, it's really about getting self-sovereignty and censorship resistance so that you don't have that central point of control.
Illia, how about you? Illia, if you could take the challenge for me of, I'm guessing a lot of listeners to this podcast are already in kind of the Web3 space, but I want to, folks who are not involved in Web3, who have never really cared about crypto, I think it's important, if this is to truly work, if decentralized AI is to truly gain traction, that will mean lassoing in folks who are not at crypto conferences, right? So, Illia, how would you describe to a non-crypto native person, like how and why decentralized AI can help solve the problems that you both articulated?
Yeah. So I think for non-crypto, it's actually easier to talk through actually the problem you outlined, which is imagine you have an AI assistant on your phone that knows everything about you, right? It listens to every second of your life. It reads all your email. It is on every message. Well, that like even describing that sounds scary. And it's scary because there's another company usually that is providing you this assistant that effectively now watching your life end to end, right? So that's the first kind of challenge you want to address, right? Like, how do we have a way to use AI in a confidential manner where your data is private? Now, okay, let's say we have solved that problem. Now you want this AI to be able to go and do things for you, right? So it needs to be able to go and, because it is able, communicate to other AI agents, to other AI assistants. Maybe we're scheduling this podcast, right? It should communicate to your AI assistants and figure out time. Well, again, if it uses some centralized platform where it does all the communication, like that centralized platform is effectively in control of how things will happen. So there needs to be a way to do peer-to-peer, right, between our AI assistants communication, maybe, I mean, not in this case, but like in some other case, exchange of money, exchange of value. Maybe it's figuring out what medical. I really like this example where this AI assistants, because they know so much about us, will be able to actually cut out a lot of middleman decision makers that right now we delegate our decision making to. And one example is FDA. FDA was created because we cannot, as individuals, review every single medicine and know if it's safe for us or not. But FDA is also doing it on average. It's on average safe, right? The percentage of errors is under this time. But your AI assistant can go and literally study every single medicine, every single case study and studies they've done, and analyze for you personally what would be the best medicine in the current time for the current problem, right? And all the history you have. So you cut out potentially dozens of middlemen decision makers between you and the product you want. And so that's a peer-to-peer communication now that you have where you want to exchange some value. Maybe your AI assistant will decide to invest into developing a medicine that will be actually solving your problem, right? So you need effectively peer-to-peer communication and money to be able to do this. I mean, like value exchange.
And slicing through, I can only imagine the red tape and regulatory hurdles there, but I love that. I love that vision.
Yeah, I mean, regulatory hurdles are another example of centralization, right? Not to go too libertarian here. But I mean, I always have this thesis that if you create a libertarian government and then you let it run, it will recreate all of these organizations because we cannot make all of these individual decisions ourselves. But AI can. And that's actually how we can build libertarian kind of state. And I mean, we see this now actually playing out. Separate topic.
No, that's whole, believe me, you just gave us episode 13, I think. We're going to dive deep on that one topic. I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, but like okay, so now you have your AI assistant, it has all your private data. It's able to make this decision, communicate. This is awesome, but how do you know like how this assistant is making decisions, right? I mean, individuals cannot go and inspect terabytes of weights, floating numbers, like even specialists cannot do that. You want to know what went in. You want to know what biases indeed it had. And so that's where you want effectively, you want to trace, you want a log of what went into this system, so you're able to know how it makes decisions. And again, probably not every individual will inspect that, but there should be a way for specialists to go and say, hey, it will be biased in this way. And maybe you say, hey, I don't want it to be biased in this way. I want to take another model, or I want to train it to be not biased in this way and make better decisions for me. Right. So again, if it is trained by somebody who is not telling you what went in, they can do whatever they want. So there's this concept of sleeper agents. So you can fine tune the model in a very specific way that it doesn't show up on any evaluations, but when there's a specific triggers present in the context, it changes its behavior. So the
Interesting.
example I use for developers is
as if folks didn't have enough things to worry about, right? As if there weren't enough problems. Oh, we also have sleeper agents
directly in the model. Yeah. So
yeah.
it can effectively, what Anna was describing, affect how you make decisions or how you think about things, even based on a specific context, right? Like it will not trigger in 2005, but it will trigger in 2006 or 2026, right? It can be conditioned on time, on context, on specific things. So unless you know what went in and how it was trained, like we cannot guarantee that there's no issues like that in the model. So there's all of those different things and that are important if you're thinking from a user perspective on how to really build a fundamentally enabling product. And I think that's like the way to describe it to non-crypto people, because we usually start with like decentralization is the most important.
Right.
Yeah, and hey, people don't actually care, right? Even usually people say they care about privacy, but they go and still share a lot of their data. But if you start with, okay, you're going to share everything in your life because that's what product requires, that actually gets people, okay, now I need to think about how this is going to be done. So yeah, that's how I approach in explaining to people who are not in crypto, really just showcasing, hey, we want to achieve this product. This product, by the way, will going to happen. Like somebody will build it and either will build it in a way that it's on user's side, or it will be making money for some company. And so do you want a company to make money every time you do something on internet, which is the current state, by the way? Like literally every time we transact on internet, right, or interact with internet, somebody's making money, not you.
Right.
Or we want a system where it's actually on your side and is trying to benefit you.
Right. So I love now actually to other side of the coin, to flip from the non-crypto crowd being inclusive to let's go like to the crypto crowd. Obviously, both of you guys have seen how rapidly the space has evolved in the past 2 years. I wrote a piece for CoinDesk. I was just mentioning to Illia off mic before we started that a couple of years ago when we spoke about for CoinDesk, no one else is talking about crypto and AI really. And I wrote a piece about, how crypto and AI could work together. And at the time, it seemed almost kind of like, not you guys, but a lot of folks out there seemed like hand wavy. We'll have the chocolate of AI, the peanut butter of crypto, and then they can do cool things together, right? But now virtually every crypto conference is a de facto crypto AI conference. What did you guys make of, just for a minute or two, on a more lighthearted note? Well, how do you guys make of this energy, this excitement? What most excites you or surprises you? Have you seen that? Have you seen, oh my God, it's everywhere right now? Well, what are you guys making of that? And what's from your perspective? What do you see?
I think it's great. I mean, what an abundance of energy and sort of like talent and just like mental thought processes all being put towards this problem of like crypto AI, decentralized AI. So I think that very good thing. I think that everyone is aligned on ideologically, we want to build decentralized AI. I think what we don't yet have as an industry is like a very tactical plan of like, here is how we arrive at self-sovereign AI in 2 years. And here's what everyone should do. Right. And I think that we're getting there. Right. And there's like lots of experimentation going on. One like interesting kind of second order effect that I maybe wouldn't have expected is just having AI coding tools makes it so much easier to build. Right. And so I think it's so much easier to become a smart contract developer. Right. And just build in Web3 without knowing all of these specialized skill sets, because you can use AI to help you a lot. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more of that. But yeah, I love that energy. I think it's great.
Illia, what has surprised you most about how rapidly the space has evolved in the crypto AI world?
I mean, I don't think it's surprising. I think to me, blockchain always was a back-end technology, right? It's
Sure.
effectively how you move value, how you create identity, how you do all the things you usually do on back end of your service. And AI is really about how you interact with computer, how computer understands you, how it's able to go and like provision actions. And so that's more of a front end, right? And so to me, like AI is a front end, blockchain is a back end. It makes sense. Like we've been trying to run around and sell backend to people. You really should set up this identity on this chain and connect it this way and use this. There's 5 different lending protocols that you should use that maybe you do this. It's like, it's like, here's a bunch of APIs you should really call. They are awesome. Versus now we have, okay, here's very easy interface that you can use with, you can write smart contracts with it. You can interact with blockchain with it. Like the AI doesn't care which blockchain you interact with. I tell to people like, hey, because people are like, oh, is this AI agent on this chain? I'm like, AI agents don't live on chains. They're chain abstracted by nature, right? And so they effectively provide you these interfaces that are a lot more humane. Even all of this like Yapper agents, right, that happened on Twitter, they effectively just like showcase like in the function that we really want is like, how do we create attention and summarization, getting this content out there, which like, it's really hard to get it from blockchain itself. And so now you have an AI that can just do all of this. So yeah, to me, like it's natural that this is happening. Obviously, it's also AI wave is just like bigger than a lot of crypto itself.
Sure.
And so, but again, it's like, it is an interface. And so it's natural that people are drawn to the interface because, oh, actually it's easier to use things. It's more streamlined. It lowers the barrier. I think the other piece that's, I mean, Anna mentioned, because it's becoming like the boundary of development is getting lower. Like traditionally, there was a lot of people in crypto who were interested in the values, but didn't have the technical skills to actually contribute. Right. And now that is starting to reduce dramatically, right? And so I think that's also as well very exciting because things that before would require, okay, now you need to find a smart contract developer. That's a super complicated job. Now it's way easier to do some of those things. So yeah, so I'm just excited to see all of this really coming together and working together hand in hand.
Absolutely. Illia, since you mentioned AI agents, let's pivot now to get a little more specific on the main use cases, if you will, or verticals, buckets, whatever you want to call it. I actually think a space has struggled. I personally struggled with a really clean taxonomy or kind of a categorization of what are the main different buckets of decentralized AI, and then kind of like which projects are in each one. So Illia, how do you, what in your minds, how do you think about like the 4 or 5 or whatever number you'd like, but what are kind of the core elements of decentralized AI as you see it?
Well, I mean, the decentralized AI, there's a lot of elements, but if we're talking about specifically about agents, maybe.
No, so overall. So,
overall, okay.
So
okay.
Let's imagine we are collectively writing a book on decentralized AI, and maybe I'll do this in the future, and we need like the 6 or 7 chapters that our publisher is tasking us with. What to you are like the core categories? Or you guys can do this collaboratively, jump in, but I'd love to see how do you guys frame this landscape?
Yeah, I've historically shown this stack, which is reproducing some of the closed source stack in a way, and we've been building out a set of projects and partnerships in the ecosystem in it. And so you have a kind of data layer. So this is everything from data acquisition, data crowdsourcing, synthetic data, data management, etc., right? Like private data, user data, like all of that handling of effectively like, how do you get novel data? How do you get kind of private data and handle it properly? How do you generate synthetic data for training for specific tasks or in general? All of that kind of very large and very important basket of things. Then you have model and kind of model infrastructure layer. So this is everything from training itself. And so you have like general pre-training, fine-tuning. You have the like specialized models, right? Where you like, for example, there's specialized on on-chain data, specialized on maybe like social data, etc., tabular data. And then you have inference and kind of infrastructure around that. How do you actually deploy this and use it? And finally, there's like application layer, which is now becoming agent layer. So this is where like, how do you actually use all of this now into specific cases, right? From entertainment to business to productivity. And in that, you have a lot of like infrastructure pieces as well, which is like agentic payments, agentic privacy, agentic kind of hosting, etc. that goes to fit as well. So that's how I frame it usually. And then in agents themselves, there's also kind of AI assistant. So this is personal, like living on the personal side. It's actually in your trust zone. You trust it. It's yours. There's the service agent. This is actually can be somebody else's assistant. It's effectively on the other side of a trust zone. And then there's also autonomous agents. So this is agents which don't belong to anyone. Maybe there's token holders, maybe there's some other governance process, but they effectively are, you spun them off and effectively they just run and either respond to requests or have some way to automatically resume themselves. And so those are like three types of kind of agent capability, not even capabilities, but who they belong to, right? Like ownership in a way.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating gray area. Anna, how would you add to that framework, modify it, or present an alternative schema as you see it?
A good breakdown, honestly. It's like data at that like foundational level, and then you have the model level, which kind of includes compute, training, everything like that, and then the applications and the agents. I think what I like about that framing too is that there are a bunch of like technologies you can introduce throughout the stack, right? So like verifiability, like privacy, self-sovereignty, but you should think of those as enabling something within that part of the stack. It's not like its own category. It's more like a tool for these categories.
That's great. I would love to actually, before we get into kind of some more details about what Near and Vana are building, if you're up for it, I'll be a little personal actually, and ask about in each of your personal AI journeys, was there a moment or inflection point when you had the light bulb that decentralized AI is your North Star, is your answer? And how about you? Talk about what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, so I guess I was training like really simple AI models, even in high school, that were just like econometric models using this like programming language Stata. And so I would just always want to train like a better model to predict things, or you can build simulations from AI models. This was usually in the context of economics research.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was thinking about it from an AI perspective, it was always about how do I get the best data, right? So if we think earliest, it's just me and like a Jupyter notebook, like wrangling with the data and training stuff and always wanting like more or better data, being like, how could I get this? Like literally, I would just contact people like, can I train on your data? This is what I need. And so I think that, coming from
that's hilarious. I wish I had those phone call tapes. That's hilarious conversations.
Just imagine. Emailing people who have like data sets. Yeah. Then they were like generally
data.
Yeah. I know, seriously. I'm like, please, I got to make this model better. But no one even knows like how AI works that much, right? So I'm just literally like harassing people for data. And I'm trying to train a model. So, but yeah, I think having seen what had worked really well for decentralized finance, like I had been mining ETH pretty early on and seeing these decentralized systems, there was like this thought of how could I get this in a more decentralized way, right? Rather than just going and looking around, or like wishing that I could somehow get access to the data sitting inside Google or the data that Apple has. What could be an alternative? But yeah, I mean, from the kind of history of AI, it really is just like wanting to make better and better AI models and always being like, oh, how do I get better data?
Love that. And Illia, obviously your journey is so interesting given your role in one of the most influential moments in AI history, truly. Can you actually briefly, for listeners who might not be as familiar with your background, chat briefly about your role at Google in this seminal paper, Attention is All You Need? And then, because you, for very broadly, at least at 1,000-foot view, it seems like you were part of the quote traditional AI research at the tip of the spear, working on the top technology that would eventually spawn LLMs like ChatGPT. And now you're at the tip of the spear of decentralized AI. So I'm curious of startups at the Google, and then where was your light bulb that decentralized AI is your North Star?
Yeah, I mean, maybe even starting earlier, like I've been thinking about AI since I was 10 in different ways. And I was trying as well doing some small neural networks in high school and some.
As we all were, right? I mean, I personally started at age 8. I didn't want to brag. Okay.
Yeah. But I worked in a machine learning company throughout my kind of university as well. And so I had a lot of just experience with doing these things for insurance, for kind of a lot of use cases where like the data was actually very sensitive. Like we had some banking, like delinquency use cases, etc. Even pharma. And so there's the fact that like when you do machine learning and like sensitive data is like a very it's pretty complicated to remove all the information, like you're
Mhm.
passing it to some other party who's actually doing the analysis. So that always was an important aspect to me. And then, so I was Google research. The kind of topic of like our research and my thesis at the time was that natural language is where effectively the knowledge and reasoning lives. Like at the time, everybody was doing like image.
Right. This is a cat.
Models.
This is not a cat. This is a cat. This is not a cat, right?
And my kind of point was like, hey, there's tens of thousands of species in the world that can see, and there's only one, although some people argue, that can actually speak. And so language is effectively like
the whales would like a word, but yes.
So yeah, that's what people bring up. But when they actually figure out how to translate it, then we'll talk. But anyway, so that was a thesis, and so we worked on very much direct, like how do we know that somebody else knows something? Well, we asked them questions, and so we worked on question answering. Right, you would ask a question to the model, maybe you give it an article to read, and effectively it would try to answer it. And at the time, we were using a so-called sequence models, right? So LSTMs, RNNs, recurrent neural networks. And so they were extremely slow, really hard to train. They were not easy to scale and figure out how to make them smarter effectively from there. And one of the ideas were like, well, what if we just throw away this whole sequence model? Like this is a very human thing to read one word at a time. Machines can process data in parallel very effectively, especially with GPUs, kind of hardware accelerators. So what if we just read the whole page and question everything at the same time in parallel and just try to make sense of it through this attention mechanism where it effectively every word looks at every other word and tries to make sense of it. And you do it a few times, and it over time is able to reconstruct the relationships of words in a document and actually answer the question. And so that was it's a very bold hypothesis at the time, because normally humans read things from left to right or right to left. They don't read everything in parallel. Right. And we tried it. It worked in the beginning. Like I implemented the first version, like it was like launch conversation. It wasn't random. It was able to pick up some signal. And so then obviously a huge amount of work required to actually make it really work by the team. And so it seemed very promising and very interesting. It was very easy to scale because it's highly parallelizable, highly easily aligned with how GPUs work. And I actually left Google even as it was getting published, and we started Near AI because the hypothesis was, okay, now we have this model, and kind of the progress in general in the networks seems very fast, and we started to teach machines to code. Exactly what Anna said, right, is dramatic change now. Like the hypothesis in 2017 was, hey, if we teach machines to code, this will fundamentally change how we building things and speed up everyone, and software eating the world to accelerate, right?
Yes.
Which we're seeing now. In 2017, that sounded somewhere between science fiction and lunacy.
No, it sounded like that was like 100 years off. Little do we know, it was only years off or 7 years off.
Yeah, so we were a little bit early as usual, but what we've done, we started actually doing a lot of crowdsourcing from students around the world, computer science students around the world, to make data for a model, and we had trouble paying them. Right, they were all in Eastern Europe, in China, in Southeast Asia. PayPal doesn't work. Like nothing works with China.
If only there was some decentralized finance tool that could send payments.
Exactly, yeah. But even already back then, Bitcoin and Ethereum were too expensive. Like we were sending 15 cents per task, and the fees were thick in dollars. And so that's how we got into Near. Hey, well, if we needed a decentralized, fast, scalable blockchain to really facilitate payments for data contribution, etc. I mean, clearly there are other use cases as well. There's a use for that, and that's how we went on Near journey. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was always like, hey, it's not gonna being in research, especially at the time. It was a lot about sharing, right? We were open sourcing, like the transformers were published, the code was open source, everything was really about how do we get all of us together to advance the science and capabilities of this. And as we were crowdsourcing data, we actually, even as a startup, we published data sets, we published some of the code as well, and papers. And so for me, it's always like, how do we advance together, and how do we help coordinate this some of the kind of things that I contribute a lot to.
That's a good point. In my mind, I've seen it more as more of like a pretty stark departure from kind of the Google AI, which we now associate with big tech AI, to decentralized AI. But you're right. I guess back then, these were research papers open to all. You were trying to move the science forward. I love it. It's such an intersection of kind of those two AI worlds.
Yeah, we were actually reading the paper, that attention is all you need paper in my class. And so thank you. I feel like that was one of the major papers at the time in like natural language processing that everyone was excited about. So thank you for the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just for listeners, just to underline this point, this is the work Illia is referring to is not some esoteric random research paper. It is widely accepted as the most foundational piece of AI research in the past decades, or if not the or one of the short list or the most influential. So thank you for that perspective. I really appreciate that. As we start to wind down, I'd love to hear from each of you a two-pronged way to describe your projects. And first, share what Vana is building for folks who are not familiar with Vana and they have not already drank the Kool-Aid of why data sovereignty is important. And then I'd like to hear, give us a nugget for those who are just loving the Kool-Aid. What is your team building, or kind of tease us of what's coming down the pipe, or something that's maybe not as widely known that you would like more folks to know about? And then we'd like to hear from you. Go for it.
Yeah. So the high level of Vana is really around like self-sovereign data and programmable data rights, right? Usually blockchains aren't very good at working with private data, but the data, if you make it public, is no longer owned by the user because it's just publicly available, right? Mm-hmm. So it is a way to be able to have programmable kind of data rights and all that comes from that. So like the AI models built on top of them. Very simple from a user perspective. It's a way to own your data and kind of permission it with your wallet. You can interact with applications that are built on Vana by contributing your data, joining something a little bit like a labor union for data, which is called a data DAO, pooling your data and then being able to train
labor union for data is a great little punchy tagline. I like that a lot.
I try to explain to my grandparents that I'm a union organizer for data and AI, and they have no idea what that means, but we're directionally trying to move that around. And then from a developer perspective, it is a way to access really great data sets to train on at an aggregate level, or to personalize an application around if an individual user brings their data in. And then the other thing I would mention is that one of the primitives that Vana introduces is really like data as an asset class, where you're able to tie a kind of data token. The technical primitive is a data liquidity pool, where you're pooling data and then it's governed by this data set token, and actually build financial primitives around data, right? So in the same way that companies buy oil futures, if they consume a lot of oil, now we're starting to see GPU futures if you're like consuming a lot of compute. And I think that we'll see markets like that form around data. There's someone working on like a data perps platform, which is very interesting. So that is like some of the high level Vana ecosystem stuff. If you are already deep on
now
Vana,
for the hardcores, give us
if you already built
I know all that. I know what Vana does. Give me a little
I think, some of what I'm really excited about is actually the data portability piece I mentioned right now is not really accessible to AI agents. And a lot of the data that lives there is not readily there. So what I'm excited about is, and a lot of what the team is focused on right now, is making data portability and data access way easier and even available. Like right now, there's pretty much no documentation on data portability. I think there might be a couple people who kind of like, if you reference the white paper, you could maybe figure out how to use it, but there's no simple docs or API to actually have a user bring their own data in and build like a personalized AI agent based on your health data, your sleep data, your Strava data, and then have an autonomous version of yourself, right? Like how do you create like a swarm of 10 like Anna AI agents that are like fully under your control?
And eventually 10 or 100 or 1,000 in the future, right?
Or a trillion. But that's Illia's,
that's a good segue to Illia a bit. That's a
scary.
Yes, exactly. So, all right, so Illia. And I'm very curious your answer here, Illia, because So a little anecdote. I remember when I was in Bangkok for Near's Redacted conference, which is so much about AI. I think I saw some visual exhibit of Near's AI ecosystem, and it looked like a more complicated version of periodic table. There were so many projects and so many different things going on. So at a high level, how would you describe what you and your team are building in Near, and then give us a little nugget for the hardcore folks?
Yeah, the way I was describing the problem, right, which is if you start from a user and you want all of these properties from your AI assistants and from this AI ecosystem, that's effectively what we're building. Like, how do we, if there's a user here, there's a factory, another person, and a restaurant on the other side, what is all of the connective tissue that we believe going to be effectively AI on the front end and crypto on the back end actually forms, right? And so from a blockchain perspective, right, again, blockchain is a backend. So how do we connect to all of the pieces, everything from indeed data, training, inference, to agentic frameworks and agents to make sure all of this is interconnected? Now, I do wear another hat, which is the Near AI hat, where we take a very specific view on how all of these things get connected, right? So Near ecosystem contains a lot of options, and you can pick and choose and combine these things in different ways. And on Near AI, we want to actually deliver this end to end, right? So, and here we indeed have effectively AI assistant kind of agent that is able to importantly execute everything in a secure enclaves. So all your data is private, the execution is private, it's end to end encrypted. This agent is able to go and find other agents that per task. So we call it discovery. It's able to communicate with them and pay them and make sure that they do the job. And if they don't do the job, how to get the money back. So all of those kind of standard payment, communication, transaction, interaction process. So we call it agent interaction and transaction protocol. And all of this needs to run, again, securely, confidentially. And so we have effectively a hosting for agents that make sure that they are indeed match this criteria. Now, there's a lot of other things. Again,
you're both building very, very modest, simple solutions. I think both of what you described, it sounds like a pretty straightforward. I don't see any challenges and complexities to overcome there. Amazing. All right, Illia, sorry to cut you off. Go on. It's your point. Lots more nuance there, I know.
There's a lot of nuance, as well as we're building it with a lot of partners as well. So that's, again, all of this ecosystem is actually powering this and enabling this experience where you as a user don't need to worry about where your data is going. It will be always private and always confidential. If you do want to contribute it to training, for example, you get rewarded for that. If you're a developer of an agent, you effectively can build a new business type, right, that you will make money off. And so creating this economic incentive as well for all the developers and users in this system.
Last couple of questions for you guys, and thank you for that overview. That was great. Last couple of questions for you guys, lightning round style. Give us a prediction or two of decentralized AI in, let's say, 1 year and 5 years, or a time frame your choice. Anna, give us, how do you see the space shaking out next year or so?
I think 1 year out, we will see a best-in-class model trained in a decentralized environment. So I think that, we might need, maybe that's 1 to 2 years, but on approximately that time horizon. And then 5 years out, I think that we have brought everyone into this self-sovereign internet, right? So your data lives in a self-sovereign way, fully user-owned. All the AI tools that you interact with are primarily self-sovereign. And in a great world, it's not just this AI world that we bring, but the whole internet, right? It's almost like you use this shift where people are introducing all of these AI tools to see what self-sovereignty and kind of user-owned AI can bring them, and use that to just basically do that shift that we've been trying to do from Web 2 to Web 3 and really have that happen. So then it's not just data and AI that's self-sovereign fully, but you also have money, everything else. I think of it as kind of I spend so much time on the internet that it's part of my existence. And I'm I live on rented land here. They can take these things away from me whenever they want. And so having true control across every facet of your digital life is, I think, where we'll get in 5 years, maybe 3 to 5 years. We might even be able to do that more aggressively. Yeah.
Amazing. Illia, prediction for 1-ish year and 5-ish years.
Yeah, I like Anna's. I think in general, my prediction actually in 5 years, like 90+% of jobs are going to get automated. And so it's less of a prediction, more of an opportunity for us indeed, because of this platform shift, to introduce a new novel way to do this, which is more effective and efficient, right? And combining blockchain and AI in this ways is a lot more efficient. And so that is literally the opportunity we have to do. So I think that's going to be
That's one of the most impressive euphemisms I've ever heard in my life. I love 90% of jobs automated. And you're right. You're right. It is. Both these things are true. It's amazing. I love that bold take. And I'm personally curious, what are your thoughts on these? I have thick skin, no emotion in this. The idea of the people's AI as a term, as a name, as a way to help frame what this is all about. What are you guys' thoughts on that slogan?
It's a more wide appeal version of user-owned AI. It has some slight patriotism to it too, in this way.
It's a little kind of rebellious spirit to it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Illia, and again, I'm not going to be offended. Like, Jeff, it's terrible.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very much in the same space as user-owned AI. I think user-owned AI is definitely feels more nerdy somehow. Like I've been trying to meme it for a while now, but people's AI. But I think one aspect to be read away from is to make sure it doesn't feel too like communist as well. So,
Oh, fair.
So that's a balance to maintain. But I think that the thought and the direction is great.
Awesome. Well, guys, this is a hell of a primer you just provided. Thank you very much. This is the beginning of a much longer conversation. I wanted this episode to kind of like set the table of what's at stake, a high level, what are the key categories, what are some of the challenges. We will be diving far deeper into all we talked about and the million other kind of various other subplots and nuance, and all this space is evolving so fast. So thank you so much for helping us get the conversation started. Really enjoyed it. Best of luck to both of your projects. We'll be speaking to you both soon again. Thank you so much again. Really enjoyed. Well, there you have it. Thank you again to our presenting partner, Vana, whose mission is to be the world's first open protocol for data sovereignty. If you will be at ETH Denver, and I know many of you will, sign up for the first AI Data Summit, hosted by Vana, on February 28th in Denver. This will be the go-to event at ETH Denver with leaders at the forefront of decentralized AI tech and applications. You'll find a link for sign up in the show notes. Thank you again to Anna Kazlauskas, co-founder of Vana, and Illia Polosukhin, co-founder of Near. And thank you to you for checking out the very first episode of The People's AI. We'll be back again next week. Well, a lot coming your way in the pipeline, going much deeper on all of this. We are just scratching the surface today. Please subscribe to The People's AI on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Twitter X at The People's AI. That's _peoples_AI. You can find me on X at Jeff Wilser. Thanks again and see you next time.